This is Pauper to the People, episode 3.
Episode 3.
My name's Chris.
And this is Matt's Tuna.
Cool. So, how's life, Matt?
Life's good, man. Life's good. You know, last week I was feeling a little down. We came over, we had a cigar, had a few drinks. You kind of put life in a little different perspective for me, and I've actually been living to that advice like every day since then.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, definitely. Been floating at another store lately, working at a fill-in for a position at one of the other stores in town. Get to see different old people film their Viagra, so that's interesting, I guess.
Slash Oxycontin.
Slash Oxycontin. Even though we have a big sign that says, we do not stock Oxycontin, we still stock it. They know. It's there. It's not gonna... The sign's silly, because I don't think it's gonna stop a burglar. Like, if they're coming in for something, like, they're gonna leave with something, you know?
Did you hear about the Magic store robbery, I guess? It was on the Monday Night Magic this week. Some guy busted in and tased a dude and stole a binder with about $1,000 worth of cards.
Dang, that's dedication.
Yeah, and the sort of argument against it was, well, how much does a taser cost? Couldn't you just bought all those cards? So, you know, it's not funny. Someone got no. You know, every time someone laughs about it on a cast, there's always a comment afterwards. Like, it's not funny.
Don't tase me, bro.
And, there's a YouTube link right there.
That's right.
Cool.
But yeah, I got some exciting plans coming in the next few weeks.
We do.
Yeah,
I'm included in those plans. Don't forget.
You are. I'm not gonna lie. We're trying to still throw together a bachelor party for Josh, but his work schedule is pretty annoying, to say the least.
You can go to a strip club without him.
Just say that we went for him.
Went for him. Living vicariously for him.
That's true, we could. And next month we got the big System of a Down concert in Seattle.
That's going to be nuts.
Yeah, totally excited for that. And then Josh's wedding the day after that. Which would be...
That's going to be nuts.
What? I tried getting Josh to go with us, but one day ahead of the wedding, it just wasn't good enough for him.
For him or for her?
Yeah. Hopefully she's not listening.
No, we love the show.
That's true.
So,
what about you?
What about me?
Anything interesting in life?
Life is good. Life is good. My daughter Joelle's getting ready for T-ball at the end of this month.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I've been playing catch with her, got her the glove and everything. And, you know, teaching her the proper fundamentals of getting your glove up properly and don't hold it down, hold it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so naturally she's holding it up and I throw one at her, not very hard. And
right,
she kind of moves her glove and I clock her right on the nose.
Nice. Ouch.
So, but
that's funny because I probably was a little older than her, but I'd played T-ball when I was younger also. And this scar right here, you listeners at home can't see this, but this scar right here above my eyebrow.
He's taking his pants off.
This scar above my... No. But right here, that's from a T-ball baseball bat incident.
Would they sharpen it?
Let's just say the hospital I went to, I was bleeding so bad. This is funny, and I partially blame them for being so foolish, but the hospital that they took me to had carpeted floors in the waiting area. Yeah.
Not smart.
Yeah. They changed those out after I showed up.
Wow.
Yeah, I was bleeding pretty bad.
Well, I was playing Little League when I was about 12. I used to have to wear glasses.
Yeah?
And I was going out on deck, and the kid who was up to bat didn't move. And so I got up behind him, and he took a swing, and he got me right between the eyes. And the next thing I knew, I was staring up at the sky, and there were EMTs over me.
Whoa.
And they took me to the hospital and, you know, kind of reset my nose. And since then, I've had 20/20 vision.
That is a really, really crazy story.
I know. It's pretty funny.
So you've had a few baseball, T-ball accidents. That not good going in for your daughter.
Yeah, but we also got to teach her the lesson of walk it off and rub some dirt in it. And, you know, she's a trooper when she wants to be. You know, there's no crying in baseball.
That's right.
So.
Well, cool, man. What about the little one? What's he been up to?
Landon is just busy growing and destroying things and just Just being Landon.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's turning into quite a character, and what's funny is he's reaching that age now where it's like, slow down. I can see you growing every day, and it's really awesome to see him learn a new word and to impart some knowledge onto him. But
Cool.
He's not my baby anymore.
That's right, he's a man.
He's a man.
Can he say tuna yet?
No. Well, we haven't really worked on that one.
Oh, that should be the next word.
It definitely should be. So, other news. Saturday, my computer crashed.
Oh, yes. The second you told me that, first thing I was worried about is this podcast. I was terrified.
Yeah, well, luckily I was able to boot it in save mode, get a bunch of software on that way, and it turns out that there were a couple of viruses that had gotten onto it, so...
We're not going to mention any names how that happened.
No, but... So, saved myself a couple $100 by not taking it into Geek Squad.
Or the Nerd Herd.
Nerd Herd. Yeah, I felt pretty good about that. We're obviously up and running now. My computer's working great. Good stuff. I think that about covers the week.
Yeah, I think it wraps up the week.
Awesome. We've got a news segment as our next piece, and we realize that there really isn't anything that hasn't been covered. So.
Oh, the news.
Yeah, the news.
The news. Yeah.
Yours is Hate That Effing Show.
Yeah, I forget what quote that was from, but somebody brought up, they're like, don't you watch the news? And the guy's like, no, man, I hate that effing show. Yeah.
So one of the comments that we got from Grappling Farang that I also had, without knowing that he had written that, I'd written a little note of that I wanted to bring up early, is that we're going to be covering a couple new decks today, obviously. We're going to revisit Affinity, because there's been some requests for some aspects and issues of it that we didn't cover that are worthwhile, that we're going to start throwing into all the decks we do cover. But what I did want to say is, once you have decided on a deck, or maybe narrowed it down to two and you've got them built or whatever, just like Standard Constructed, make sure you don't ditch your deck too soon.
Yeah, definitely. Especially in Pauper, it's especially easy to do because the decks are so cheap.
Yeah.
Basically we're basically saying give it a shot. Give it a chance. Let it breathe and try to flourish it a bit.
Yeah. Most Magic players that I've read and listened to and other podcasts, they recommend around 100 games with your deck before you can effectively play it and know what to expect from it and know what answers that are available to you. So, just because you spent less than a constructed deck, it's no excuse to not put a Pauper deck through the same pace as you would with Valakut, for example.
Yep.
It's only going to improve your game and your understanding of how it works. So,
I agree.
and with the tournament practice room on MTGO and enough friends, Norton PC checkup, with enough friends and resources available to do that, there's no reason to not just log on and try something. So, and just get your licks in and get your reps down before you're ready to take it on to the 2-mans or the daily events.
Yeah, if it's a new deck and if it's something you're trying out, you might lose. You're gonna run into those harder decks out there, and just give it a chance. Keep with it. Take your losses and learn from it. That's how you expand and create your deck.
Yeah, it's a predicament people face even when they're playing Standard Constructed. Is you're in the casual room and some deck is just beating your face, and if you're new to the deck that you're playing, it can be pretty frustrating. And just like anything else, take your time, get to know it. Don't blame the shuffler. Don't blame.
But it's so easy to blame the shuffler.
Everybody does it. Just give it the time it needs to find out how it's working. So, what we're going to start with is I wanted to revisit Affinity. There were a couple of aspects that people had asked after the show, thanks to everyone who commented and sent us an email, by the way, that we didn't really go into some of the weaknesses, and also wanted to cover some of the substitutions that we were making to our decks.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Pauper is a lot like Legacy in the fact that the decks don't necessarily rotate, they just get tweaked.
Mm-hmm.
So with Affinity, starting with the weaknesses, one that was brought to my attention really quick, and one that I found out myself really quick, is that I'm running a 16 land build with the 4 black, the 4 blue, the 4 red, and the 4 green artifact lands from Mirrodin. And 4x4 different colored lands can make it inconsistent at times. You know, I can't count the number of times I've had Disciple of the Vault in my hand with no black mana, an Atog in my hand with no red mana, or a Carapace Forger without any green mana. So as much as the chromatic spheres and the stars help you out in those situations, you still have to draw them. And this is definitely a spendy deck. It's not as much as Storm, which you were saying you talked to someone about the price of that.
Yeah, this morning actually you mentioned his particular Storm deck beat me turn 3, maybe 4. I think it was more like 3. Yeah, I think he said it was in the 40 to 45 ticket range.
Mine was about 20, approximately, and it would be a little more expensive if I wouldn't have had some of the standards like Galvanic Blast and Carapace Forger. Those aren't too expensive, but when you're getting play sets of things, it can add up to a couple of tickets pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of the ones I wanted to make you aware of if you're considering Affinity, and if you haven't experienced this for yourself yet. Lotus Petal is, when I was looking this information up earlier this evening, it's around 2.5 tickets for Lotus Petal.
Which I think what you're saying is that's even on the low end right now?
Yeah. I actually, when I made my deck just last week, I paid 6 for one of them.
Yeah.
And I looked, Lotus Petal can be hard to find, but that was a good portion of the deck. Gorilla Shaman, which is a sideboard card, is around 5 tickets if you can find him.
Really?
Yeah, he's another spendy one. And another one that's not always easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hydroblast is 2 tickets. So there's some aspects of the Affinity deck that are a little more on the spendy side, just to keep that in mind. However, when the deck's running smoothly, it may as well play itself.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely darn near plays itself.
So
it's very fast.
Once you get the hang for it, and even with me just learning it, the plays that you do are pretty obvious, and they become obvious fairly quickly. One thing I've noticed is that if you've got a Disciple of the Vault in your hand, and you've got the resources available to play him, you need to get him out there as soon as possible, especially before you do any sort of artifact sacrificing shenanigans. And if you don't have the resources to get him out there, consider getting him out there instead of something else you were thinking of. He's definitely a beating.
I was just curious, I had to look up this card to make sure I got the name right, but is Prophetic Prism, is that a card in the Affinity deck?
No, it's not.
No, okay. I was just curious.
When Prophetic Prism enters the battlefield, draw a card. For 1 in a tap, add 1 mana of any color to your pool. And it's common. From the Rise of Eldrazi, Prophetic Prism, for 0.05 tickets.
I was just thinking of that card if it was maybe another answer for your specific color that you might need.
Sure, and actually, we'll skip ahead here really quick to this aspect since you bring up a good point here. I didn't want to mention this, we'll just mention it a little bit earlier.
Sorry.
No, it's totally cool. It's a lot more natural this way. When you're looking up these lists, if you're net decking or even if you're just looking at daily events or just trying to get some ideas, make sure you pay attention to the date the deck was posted. For example, in the White Weenie list that I was using, when we talk about White Weenie, this will be more apparent, but there were no Kembis Skyguard, there were no Leonin Sky Hunters, or Squadron Hawks in the build. Now, that may have very well been the builder's intention, but it pays to experiment and to know what isn't included in your deck as much as what is. So if you're looking at a list from even 2010 and a couple of sets haven't been released, you never know what those commons are going to be. And especially if you've come from a constructed standard mind frame, you're not really used to giving those commons the type of analysis and thought that you would for a mythic or a rare.
Right. Yeah, and back to what you're saying, I think when I was doing research for my deck even, you see the decks that are posted that, for the basic structure of the decks, and people, it seems like, now, I'm not sure if this is an accurate statement, but it seems like people try to go for the older cards more. I don't know the mind frame or the mindset about that. Maybe it's to throw your opponents off. Maybe they haven't been playing as long as you. But it seems like that some of the standard and more recent released cards might be overlooked from time to time.
Yeah, the other thing with Magic the Gathering Online is, again, getting back to the standard construction comparison, Magic the Gathering Online, it doesn't rotate and ebb and flow the way paper Magic does. Especially with the availability going, I lost that queue, play another one, I lost that queue, play another one. You don't always have the foresight to take a couple of minutes in between rounds, or a week, for instance, if you were knocked out of an event, to really examine your deck and look at what worked, what didn't, what sort of changes you can make, and just be mindful of not getting stuck in a rut when you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with new sets coming out as frequently as they do, you never know what you're going to find, and it's just getting into that mentality.
Definitely. And going back to your Affinity Revisited, I was just going to mention that I think you're going to touch base on your particular deck.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me get that brought up.
Sure.
We are brought to you tonight by Henry Weinhard's Blue Boar Irish Style Pale Ale.
Yes, we sure are.
Okay. So most of my deck is the pretty standard fare of what you would see in an Affinity deck nowadays. I've got the 4 ATOGs, the Artifact Lands, the Disciple of the Vaults, 4 of those, 4 Carapace Forgers, and 4 Thoughtcast. Thoughtcast, Affinity for Artifacts, a blue and 4 colorless, draw 2 cards. So, a lot of times you're going to try playing that for 1 or 2 if possible, which puts it right in the range of any sort of other drawing effect that you can have.
Yeah, and as far as just my personal experience playing against you with it, like I think we said earlier, the deck almost plays itself. I mean, I watched you throw out so many cards. I mean, the Lotus Petals and all these things, and then I didn't realize. I mean, I'd read ATOG, but I didn't realize how much of a pain and a nightmare he actually was.
Sure.
I mean, and then seeing Frogmite come out for 0 mana, I mean, that was annoying.
Sick fascination with Frogmite, man.
I do.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, since it just occurred to me, the first couple of times I played Affinity, with all those interactions that go on the stack, it takes some time to get used to the clicking and the working through all of that. And I know you were giving me a hard time. I think you wrote yawn in the text box or something like that.
Well, you're still learning how to play it too.
And so if you're playing Affinity and you're learning, and just ignore what the opponent's saying to you if they're being a dick.
Yeah, especially if it's me.
No,
I'm kidding.
Ignore what you say anyway. No,
oh,
but you're learning your deck, and just ignore what the other person's saying if they're trying to give you a hard time. It's only gonna get you flustered. It's only going to make you misclick. And odds are that's probably what they're going for, as much as them just bitching.
Honestly, really quick, I just want to mention, because it's funny you brought that up. If you think the Affinity deck has a lot on the stack to activate and do,
Storm.
Yeah, the Storm. This guy's every time their turn is probably 10 minutes.
Yep.
I don't do anything. Like, I get up, I get a snack, grab a new beer, whatever.
Did you notice they changed the time on the formats from being a 60-minute round to a 50-minute round?
Not particularly.
Yep. The rounds that you have, you've got 25 minutes on each side now instead of 30. There's our news.
The news!
So, something else to be mindful of, especially when you're playing a deck with a lot of interactions like that. I've also got the 4 Mirror Enforcers, the 3 Pyrite Spellbombs, Chromatic Sphere and the Chromatic Star, and then 4 Frogmites. And
Frogmite!
Yeah, you do have a sick fascination with that. Also, I've got the Lotus Petal, and basically the guts of what you would find in any modern
Affinity.
Affinity deck.
Did I beat your Affinity deck? I don't know if I did.
I don't think you did.
I think you smoked me.
You beat me on on one game of a match, but I went 2-1 on you.
Oh, okay.
And that was you using your Infect build.
Oh, okay.
Your janky ass Infect build.
Yeah.
Which I love. So.
Affinity's definitely a good deck.
It is. It's just, and there's part of you too that's kind of like, I feel like I'm just throwing the best cards that say Affinity in there, but you're not necessarily doing that, and you still have to run it properly, and by the same token, don't feel like you're, I guess, cheating yourself out of doing some sort of deck building by going with an Affinity deck or other cards that say Affinity. And by the same token, just because it says Affinity doesn't mean it's going to automatically just play itself and be crystal clear. That's where playing those matches come in.
Exactly.
Now, some substitutions that I did. I took a look at some of the other players' sideboards in the daily events and on PDCMagic.com. I substituted Gorilla Shaman and Hydroblast out of my sideboard for Augur of Skulls and Ancient Grudge. Now, Ancient Grudge is basically a shatter effect. So, 1 in a red, tap, destroy target artifact. But it's also got a flashback cost of 1 green. So, instead of running 4 shatters, you can run 4 Ancient Grudges and effectively have 8 shatters.
Dang.
So, that's pretty powerful ability right there. And that's from Time Spiral. Then Augur of Skulls can be sacrificed at your upkeep to make an opponent discard 2 cards.
Real quick, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Did you have prices on those cards? I'm just curious.
I did not. They weren't expensive.
Oh, they're not? Okay.
Well, let me see right here. I've got Ancient Grudge brought up. You have 23 save crit, 0.23 save crits, which is enough. When you're done, you'll have 0.11.
Okay, so it's not
0.04,
okay.
0.03, excuse me.
Okay.
So,
I'm just curious.
Yeah, definitely. And then Augur of Skulls is great in a control matchup. Get those guys out there and then just start doing some hand destruction on them. Make them have to discard 2 of their cards. And slow them down enough that you can let your artifacts that you have on the board build up to where you can play the Mirror Enforcer and even the Thoughtcast. Yep, Thoughtcast for as cheap as possible, while you're making them throw away the cards that they wanted to play. So, and as far as notes I've got, I think that wraps up the revisiting I've done with Affinity. Now, we want to make it a recurring thing. So as we learn and develop new things with these decks that we're playing with, for instance, if I discover something really cool or wacky or a different card choice about Affinity, I'll make sure to bring it up next week.
And again, if any of you listeners have anything that you feel that we still left out, please let us know, and we'll definitely get back to it.
We're really digging the interaction that we're having with the people who are listening. It seems like it's working really well.
Oh yeah, especially love all the comments. I really like replying to everybody, and especially recently playing online. This has really got to my head, but I'm starting to get recognized when I'm in Pauper matches.
He's sending me text messages like, someone just recognized me on MTGO. Like, how's it feel? Famous?
I'm internet famous.
Yep.
People are like, hey, Tuna, hey, don't you have a podcast? I'm like, why, yes, I do. You listen? Thank you.
And actually, that's a point I wanted to mention, too. I've had a couple of people who have said hi to me on MTGO, and I didn't respond back, and I get back to my computer, and they've logged off, or something happens, and I can't get to them in a timely fashion. I'm not ignoring you.
Yes, he is. He hates you. No, I'm kidding.
Rather, I've got 2 small children, so a lot of times it's play a match, go stop your kid from eating crayons. So it's not that I don't want to talk to you, but my time on MTGO, when I do get on, I'm just game, because before long it's going to be Dad.
Is it the Crayola brand? Is it the good crayons?
No, it's the what are those made out of? The soy crayons.
Ew.
Yes.
Does he have a favorite flavor that he eats? Or color, rather?
Floor crayon.
Floor crayon?
Yeah.
Huh.
So you got a 5-year-old who's constantly dropping and leaving stuff everywhere, and you got an 18-month-old that goes by.
That eats crayons.
Yeah.
Taste the rainbow.
Or like I told you earlier, forget tasting the rainbow. You should smell that rainbow sometimes when you have to change his diaper.
When you open the diaper, does a big rainbow shoot out and arch over your wherever?
No, if you're not careful, he'll pee and it'll arch.
and then it glistens in the light and creates the rainbow.
This is getting weird.
Smell the rainbow.
So,
what do you think? Should we take a break, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
We'll be back in a few. This is Chris with Pauper the People.
And this is Tuna, Pauper the People.
Awesome. Oh, we're back.
We are back.
So next we need to talk about Tuna's mono green ramp deck.
Oh yes, very nice.
So I'm going to sit back and let you take the lead on this one.
All right. Oh man, I was gonna sit back too. So who's gonna do the podcast? I'm kidding. So the mono green ramp, which is pretty. I'm gonna first start out by saying it's pretty fun. During the initial research and playtesting I've been doing. A few things we're going to discuss on it. The strengths. Number one strength is the ability to get Ulamog Crusher out by turn 4. I've done this several times. Usually ends in your opponent conceding.
Usually ends in tears.
Yep, definitely. And we're not Triforced in.
That's fine. Keep talking.
Oh, okay. Other strengths are keeping your opponent's land low or non-existent if successful, all the while ramping yourself. Cloud Post and Glimmer Post are freaking ridiculous. They're the most ridiculous man accelerations that I've experienced with. I like doing ums.
Yeah.
Well, you know how it is. You gain life also while doing it with the Glimmer Posts, which is nice. Crop Rotation is a crazy card. It's pretty cool. It's an instant, so you can do it whenever, obviously, but it's for 1 green, and you sacrifice a land as an additional cost to it. So typically you'd sack a forest after you pay it for it with that forest, and then hunt up a Cloud Post or a Glimmer Post, depending on your situation. Let's see. Yeah, like I was saying, they rage quit when they see that kind of shenanigans going on early. This card,
Aurochs Herd.
Aurochs Herd, exactly. That's a really fun card to play. Sometimes even more so than Ulamog, to be honest. Especially when you can manage to get a few of them out and attack with them all.
And yell Stampede.
When you first did that to me after I had a few of them out, ever since then I always yell to myself, Stampede.
Well, he had so much mana available. He played 3 or 4 of them.
Like
it's
all
just
of them
like
one turn.
ding, 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 and he got the 3rd one out, and I was like, Stampede! It was pretty fun.
I'll touch on that in a second. Weaknesses for this deck are early game removal. When someone knows to exile a mana wall or play any kind of land destruction cards to bring your Cloud Post down early game, it pretty much shuts you down from the get-go. I mean, you have a small chance of recovery, but honestly, not a whole lot. People see, I'll get into a couple of the cards later here in a second, but people see the Overgrown Battlement, and most of the time it's pretty apparent that you have a green ramp deck. So they shut that down. That gets journeyed nowhere fairly quickly. The other weakness is when you keep that perfect hand and you drop an Ulamog turn 4, but then again a Journey to Nowhere and Oblivion Ring shuts down your Ulamog, and then you're left with having to top deck another one or another Aurochs herd or something else. There's not a whole lot of There's not a whole lot of attacking creatures in this deck. You really have just the Ulamog or or the herd.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it seems like when you're searching for basic lands. You're going through your deck for more lands or an Aurochs herd, but there's
definitely
not a whole lot of actually looking for threats. It's more looking for ways to fuel your threats.
Right, exactly. Where is that here?
Sorry.
Oh, no problem. The only upside of that is the creatures that are in this deck are just tanks. They're just huge. I mean, they're definitely a force to be reckoned with, especially if you get them out that soon. Other weaknesses, counter, obviously, it's a weakness to a lot of decks. If you get, there's force, what am I trying to say here? Lose myself. The cards in this deck, they do land destruction on your opponent and then also let you fetch a land, which is very nice. If you have that countered when you're relying on it to get out your Cloud Post or Glimmer Post, that can definitely hurt. Playing against other ramp decks, I don't know, I haven't quite decided if this is a weakness, because you have to understand that they're also playing with Cloud Posts and Glimmer Posts, the Locust lands. Its ability actually says it actually buffs or benefits each other from every Locust land on the field, not just the ones you control. So if you're throwing down Cloud Posts and your opponent's throwing down Cloud Posts, you're helping them out too, as much as yourself. So that's definitely something you have to worry about when you're doing against other green ramp decks. Let's see.
So when you're done with your weaknesses, I've got a couple that I've experienced.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Perfect time.
So from the perspective of playing an opponent who is using a green ramp deck, weaknesses, I primarily played against Tuna with my white weenie deck, and there's a huge weakness to flyers.
Yes, which actually I will definitely touch on that in my substitution section.
Sure. And then counter land destruction.
Yes.
So if you're blowing up his lands,
yeah,
he's kind of SOL for blowing yours up.
Yeah, definitely.
So one point I wanted to specifically mention is that you do not fear Ulamog's Crusher. So a lot of times...
A lot of people do, but honestly, there's ways around it.
There are definitely ways around it, because he's got to attack to do anything.
Exactly.
So keep a way to deal with him handy. You know, a Journey to Nowhere, an Oblivion Ring, 8 Hornet Stings.
8 Hornet Stings.
So with that in mind, a really good strategy that I found with my deck was swarming my dudes out as fast as possible and beating face. And it wasn't really holding back on my mana. It was using my mana while I had it, because I knew it's going to get blown up sooner or later.
Definitely, because that's what I do.
Yeah, so that's what I've been experiencing, at least playing against it.
Let's see, what else was I going to talk about? The cost of the cards in this deck. The overall deck is relatively cheap, especially if you want to compare it to, say, the Affinity deck, or especially the Storm deck. By any means, this is on the cheaper end of total deck costs, especially for what you're getting, what you're doing, and the price of playing it. The most expensive cards in this deck are the Cloud Posts and the Crop Rotations, both of which, coming in at the time that I purchased, were 0.75 tickets apiece. Both of them are extremely vital to the deck, so you can't really go without them. So you kind of have to pick those up. So when you're talking a playset of each of those, that makes up for 85% of the deck cost. That brings you to 6 tickets for a playset of each of those 2 cards. The Glimmer Posts, they're, I think, 0.2, if anything. I mean, they're cheap, and they're also equally important. I think because they're in a more recent set, they're just really cheap. Other cards, the Ulamog's Crusher, everything else is dirt cheap in this deck. Total deck cost that I ended up with was 7.68 tickets, which it's completely worth the fun. Let's see what else.
You could charge someone 7.8 tickets to look at a Gideon if you wanted to. No, you can't touch it. You can't use it, but you can look at it. 8 tickets.
Also, the simple fact that the cloud posts / glimmer posts, I would consider to be a pretty staple card, and I've seen them used in other decks, so it's not like you're buying them specifically for a green ramp deck. They're pretty nice mana acceleration for any kind of deck situation that you'd like to put them in. So I personally consider them staple cards, so even fronting the money for those is just totally worth it. A couple of substitutions and tweaks that I did. I think, like we mentioned earlier and even last week, you can Google the basic structure of many of these decks. You can Google Pauper Green Ramp and find out the basic shape of most of these. I think, like we just mentioned earlier, that some of the decks, when you come across, you have to check the date when they are created, because during my research for the Green Ramp, one deck I found didn't even have Olamog's Crusher. I mean, it was before Rise of Eldrazi was even out, and they had other beefy, green dudes that they had in the deck instead, which, obviously Olamog's Crusher is, tenfold better. Another card that I really liked was the Aurochs Herd. I found it in one. It was a green deck, but it was more of a big creature-based deck. It wasn't what I would consider a true green ramp deck, but I found the card, and so I tried it out in my deck. That's why it's in there. It's just like I said earlier, it's just another body, another beefy creature to get out, other than relying strictly on Olamog.
It lets you search for another Auroch when you play it, too.
Yeah.
Am I cutting you off? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Right.
It's fine. I love it, to be honest. Aurochs Herd is a fantastic card. It's a 4/4. It costs 6 mana. It has trample, and just like Chris said, it lets you search your library for...
Just like Chris said.
It lets you search your library for another Aurochs Herd. So it's similar to Squadron Hawk, and except that you can only search one at a time rather than hunt all of them like the Squadron Hawk does. But it's similar and it's fun, especially like we mentioned earlier when you can play multiple on one turn.
What do you get when you cross an Aurochs Herd with the Squadron Hawk? What? Buffalo wings.
Ooh. Clap, clap, clap.
Card advantage, though. I mean, any getting back to being serious. Any card that you can play that lets you search for another threat, it just ramps the value of that card through the roof.
Oh, also, whenever Aurochs Herd attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking Aurochs. So, yeah.
Stampede.
What's better, one Olamog or a stampede of Aurochs? You be the judge. I have my personal choice.
Now you've got Ulamog on that list. So, since we wanted to make an effort to talk about mechanics, maybe we should discuss what Annihilate does really quick. This just occurred to me with Ulamog.
Yeah. Annihilate when the creature attacks. So before the blocking phase, Annihilator 2, which is the number 2, which is what Olamog has. Whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices 2 permanents. And like I said, that's right away. They have to decide that before they decide to block. Also, Olamog's other thing says he has to attack each turn if able. So each turn they're sacking 2 permanents. Generally speaking, they don't go a whole lot, very many turns after that. I mean, not to mention the fact he's swinging for 8, but...
Right. And you're playing, with you playing cards like Reap and Sow, and one Newly Acid Moss, I think it is?
Yeah.
One Newly Acid Moss. So, you think to yourself, I'll just sack my lands. Well, he's been playing cards this entire ramp up that are making you sack your lands anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time Ulamog gets in and swings,
you really don't want to sack your lands.
Yeah, if you even have any left. Otherwise, you're sacking your swing back.
That's true.
When you really can't afford to, because you sack your dudes, you don't have any mana. What are you gonna play?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you mentioned, Reap and Sow, Drain the Well, another one. I think I mentioned Crop Rotation. Expedition Map, definitely a good card.
Was Drain the Well one of your ideas, or was that on the list you saw? So I'd played a couple of ramp decks, and I'd never seen Drain the Well. I thought that was a really clever one, too.
I saw it in a land destruction deck. I don't really like to consider this a land destruction deck, but when I Googled Green Pauper, I came across a strict land destruction deck because I realized that kind of the guts of this deck is also, land destruction a little bit. So I found that one. The other big card that I chose to leave out of this one, I think, was called Thermocast, which is destroy target land, and if it's a snow-covered land, you gain 1 life. I chose Drain the Well over that one.
Yeah, the thing about it that is really frustrating is destroy target land, you gain 2 life.
Yes.
So I'm busy trying to kill you by turn 8, with for instance, my flyers, my 2/2 flyers, and you're just negating everything I do.
Yes. Yeah. I added Fog to the main board, mainly because, mainly for the flyers, not just for the flyers, but the flyers get over your walls. There's nothing you can do about it. You need the walls for mana ramp. Early flyers, they don't care about your walls. They just fly over your walls and peck out your eyeballs. I like Fog, especially my favorite thing to do is when I'm playing against I believe like a landfall deck, something where they're just really beefing up their guys, and they're swinging for, I think I played a guy yesterday, he swung for 23. Would have been a 1-hit kill. Fog.
Rage quit.
No, he saw it out. I murdered him after that, but
yeah,
he saw it out. Other changes, all the main changes I made, I'm getting pretty close to this mic, I just realized.
That's fine.
The main changes I made were definitely the sideboard. The sideboards I saw online were all really dated. None of them I thought were worth even trying out, especially because it seemed like the sideboards that I saw were designed for stuff that just I do not see on Magic Online currently. I'm not saying that there wasn't there, but at one time. But I added Azuri's Archers for the flying. That's my answer to Squadron Hawks and other pesky early flyers. They're 1 mana. I believe they're a 1/2, and they gain +3/+0 when they block a flying creature because they have reach. Should have mentioned that.
And they're another one of those. They're in standard right now. You probably picked it up 20th pick, just to round out your curve, or it got past you and there was nothing else in that deck.
Yeah.
And that's another one of those ones where I don't have any of those. Hit up Grey Cat Records on mtgo.com. I will gladly give you 20.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, what are they in the newest? They're in not BCs, but Scars, I think.
Yeah, they're Scars.
Yeah, I mean they're dirt cheap and they're very effective for blocking against flyers and shutting them down, especially for 1 mana. I added Plummet to my sideboard, again for flyers. Flyers are a big threat against this deck, so I thought that was important. Hornet Sting. I added Hornet Sting to the sideboard. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to stay in the sideboard. It's done me decent. Hornet Sting is 1 damage for 1 mana. It takes out goblins, takes out white weenies, it takes out Squadron Hawks, anything obviously with 1 toughness, but it is for what it is. I mean, green doesn't have lightning bolt, so. And then finally, I added Naturalize for saving Ulamog from the Journey to Nowheres, because that is definitely inevitable. If you ever play any white deck, I don't care if it's White Weenie or any kind of other rogue white deck or anything, there's always going to be Journey to Nowhere and Oblivion Ring are the two biggest things that always happen to my Olamog all the time. I mean, he gets, if I get my Olamog out turn 4, boom, Journey to Nowhere. I don't see him again. So Naturalize is good for that.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move because you can almost guarantee that when you realize what deck they're playing. So okay, they're trying to ramp to an Ulamog, but they will definitely take an Aurochs Herd.
Yeah.
So, if you've got that Journey to Nowhere or a Oblivion Ring in your hand, just don't play it on their wall. If you're flying over, if you're getting damage, just hold that sucker, and as soon as it hits and you're available to do it, just play it.
Yep. So we talked about the substitutions I made. What else can we talk about? Tuna's deck. Well, I covered a lot of it so far. Just to wrap it up, kind of summarize. Basically, you play the mana walls as soon as you can, and or the Expedition map, which is an artifact hunt land card. That one you hunt for it and it goes to your hand. It's not as great as Crop Rotation, but it gets the job done. If you don't have your Olamog online by turn 4, you can definitely do some Reap and Sow. Reap and Sow is a 4-mana card, 3 in a forest, but it also has Intertwine. And the abilities are destroy target land or search your library for a land card and then put it into play. So it goes into play, not just your hand. And the Intertwine means that you can choose both if you pay the Intertwine cost. So Intertwine cost is... Entwine, sorry.
No, that's cool.
I was trying to read too fast.
Googling Intertwine and being like, he doesn't know.
What does that mean? Entwine.
It's from Darksteel, by the way.
Yeah. Where was I at? Oh, you can choose both, pay the Entwine cost, and that would be 6 mana.
Yep.
Yeah. And I always do that. I don't think I've ever played Reap and Snow without Reap and Sow. I'm a little buzzed.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm a few beers in.
Yeah.
Yep. Anywho, wonderful card. Love it. Definitely love it. Where was I at? My notes here. Oh, I love getting the Herd online. Probably even more so than Olamog at times. Like I said before, mainly it's because when people see Olamog, they just concede, or they get really like bummed or bad sportsmanship, like call me names or oh yeah blah 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 real original or oh I've seen him all night, shit like that. But the Herd, it throws people off. They see what it does, but they don't really quite know what it does until you get 2 or 3 of them attacking, and people are like, oh crap, I should have probably done something about that. So I really like doing that, especially because when they buff each other, it's just fun. Like I said earlier, I yell Stampede. I just do that, but it's fun. Let's see. Yeah, especially like I was saying, when they see Olamog that soon. When people rage quit or concede, I really don't see that as a win. I think it's boring, not very fun. Some people are like, oh great, it's a win, chalk it up, but whatever. Like I said, I like the Herd, it's a nice touch. I threw it in there. And as I mentioned earlier, the sideboard is completely original. I did the sideboard completely by myself without net decking anything about that. Just basically from experience playing online. And yeah, honestly, like I said earlier, 7.68 tickets, fun deck. Even if you don't get Olamog out, it can be fun. And I will be posting a link to the deck on our Facebook page, just as I did last week with my Infect deck. And if any of the listeners out there have any questions, comments, and or suggestions for the deck, please let me know. Feel free to chime in. And that's about it for the Green Ramp.
Slam those notes down.
Slam them. Finish my beer.
So, up next is White Weenie. I've got my file saved down here as Chris's White Weenie.
Show you a White Weenie.
I'm thinking that's kind of... I was almost wanting that to be the name of our show, is Nice White Weenie, let me show you my green deck. And then just for the description, just put puns. I was thinking, nah, we'd probably get in trouble for that one.
I think we settled on a different title anyway.
We did. We've got that one
perfect
down. So, yeah, 3 of 3. This is it. We got to get it all covered tonight.
Yep, wrap it up. We're done.
Closing shop.
Stamp it.
So, White Weenie. The strengths of the deck that I've encountered with it are that it's monocolored. It's got efficient creatures with versatile loadouts. There's a lot of different ways to run a White Weenie deck, limited only to your imagination and maybe the way you want to get there and what you want to accomplish with it. There's a lot of life gain available to negate the counter burn, and it can be extremely evasive if you load out with a bunch of flyers. As far as the weaknesses go, you have horrible, horrible draws. So you've got, especially in a lot of the standard lists and the list I run, you're running 4 Shade of Trocaires from Planar Chaos and 4 Razor Golems from Darksteel. So Razor Golem, of course, has Affinity for Planes and Vigilance. As a 6 mana, and I was frequently playing him for 3 or 2. So, and then Shade of Trocaire with a white mana, he gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So you have to walk this really fine line between having too few and too many mana sources, especially where those pump creatures are involved. So, any weaknesses that you've encountered playing my deck?
I was actually going to bring this up earlier. I don't know if maybe you aren't starting with this card, or if you're really holding off on to play it for the full mana cost, but what's this guy right here called?
Shade of Trocaire?
Yeah. He has the suspend ability.
Yep.
I think personally, if I ever started with him in my hand, I would play him turn 1 guaranteed every time with the suspend cost.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I'm not 100% sure what you had in your hand, but it seems like if you play that turn 1 and get it out there and let the suspend go, turn 3 or 4, whenever it would come into battlefield, it seems like, because most of the time I minimize the exile window just because it's in my way, and so sometimes when he comes in, I'm like, oh crap, forgot about him, here he comes, and definitely a force to be reckoned with when he gets out there.
Yeah, the suspend ability is, he's got suspend 3 for white, and so instead of paying the white and 3 colorless, you pay 1 white, you exile him for 3 turns, and at the end of that 3rd turn, when it's your next upkeep, he comes into play for free with haste.
Oh yeah, with haste.
So it's a powerful ability, and just as a disclaimer, where Affinity was the deck that I really kind of took what was out there and ran with it, White Weenie's a deck that I've really been trying to tweak and develop. And so, honestly, I can chalk that up to just learning how to play that guy properly.
Right. I think there's, yeah, that's true. It's not really a weakness. I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
I think White Weenie is so much more vast than, the options available for Affinity.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much more out there.
It was literally like going from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Yeah.
Affinity is the guts of it don't change, and it's a very finely honed machine for what you want it to do. And White Weenie is it's vast.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I don't think you could settle on one specific basic shape of a White Weenie deck.
Yeah. I mean, the consistents that you're going to usually see are, Journey to Nowhere, Oblivion Ring. If you're not playing Journey to Nowhere, you're not playing a white deck.
That's right.
Shade of Trocaire is pretty common, and Razor Golem are the common ones that I've seen.
Is that the Affinity to Planes guy?
Yeah. He's 6, Affinity to Planes, Vigilance, 3/4. The other reason I wasn't playing him too much when I was playing you is because I needed to get over your walls.
Oh, yeah.
But he's really good at pulling down the ground while your flyers beat face. Mm-hmm. And if they happen to not have something on the ground that can block him, he's got Vigilance, great.
Yeah, exactly.
So, or you get their life low enough by pecking at them, they're going to start making chump blocks, and he's just going to sit there, be able to attack and defend the next turn.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as the cost of the cards, now, whereas yours was 7.5, almost 8.
Yeah.
This one cost me 3.6 tickets.
Nice. So about half.
Yeah, talk about the other end of the spectrum there too.
Yeah.
But I already had Journey to Nowhere and Squadron Hawk, but they're not expensive. They're standard, legal right now. You can find them everywhere for dirt cheap. Substitutions. This is where the work in progress aspect of it really comes in.
Yeah, and real quick, I just want to mention that, like before, like we did with the Affinity deck, I'm sure we're going to be revisiting the White Weenie because it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, I would say White Weenie isn't even an official build for me yet.
Yeah.
So it's being tweaked constantly.
Definitely.
And it's a lot of fun to play, and it's not like it's a chore to do so. But sometimes when you're in the Pauper format and you're in an Eternal format like this, it's what's that card do? Ooh, I gotta get some of those. And then you end up not having a spot for it, or ooh, I need that, and it ends up not making the cut.
Yep.
So it's just a fine line that you got to keep walking and tweaking, and another reason why you need to get those games in.
Mm-hmm. So what'd you add here?
What did I add? I added Stand Firm and Judge Unworthy. The Judge Unworthies from Future Sight, Stand Firm's from Mirrodin. Now, Stand Firm is a single white mana, and it's an instant, and you play it, and target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, scry 2.
Can I just add that I definitely commend you for adding that card. I think that is a wonderful card for 1 mana and for what it does.
Now, you don't get to draw the card you scry, which makes it not quite up to snuff with Preordain.
Right, but it's instant speed, no?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you play it on your opponent's turn, and they swing in, and you pump a blocker, and it's all of a sudden it's not as nice and clean combat math.
Exactly.
So, and then Stand Firm is 1 and a white.
No, we just talked about Stand Firm.
Oh, excuse me, Judge Unworthy. I put them in the opposite order.
Yeah, no big.
Excuse me, Judge Unworthy from Future Sight is 1 and a white, and it's scry 3. Reveal the top card of your library, and it deals damage equal to its converted mana cost to target creature.
Was that a recent addition? I don't know if I've seen that one.
I had them in, but what I was really running into with White Weenie is I wanted what I needed when I needed it, so I added these scry cards. Now, again, they're not as efficient, I would say, as Preordain is, with the ability to scry and then draw.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Judge Unworthy I didn't get to use a lot against you because I wasn't really interested in killing your walls, and you didn't have a lot of dudes that would do a lot of damage to. And with my converted mana cost peaking at 6, I couldn't exactly kill an Ulamog with it anyway.
Gotcha.
If I were to reveal a Razor Golem. But, I mean, if you need a land, you scry 3, you reveal a land, it does 0 damage. But you're still getting the cards in the order that you want them. Which I feel this deck, in my experience, really needs is just a way to get what you need when it's needed and curve yourself out. There's a huge amount of 2-drops in my deck, and they're flyers, so they've got the evasion and they've got a reason for being in there, but it needs a little bit of stability to it.
Yeah, and even when I was trying to keep your we're playing against you with my green deck, I was keeping your land low. White Weenie, it almost doesn't affect it because you're still getting out all your creatures.
A lot of what I took out is the dudes, for instance, when they come in to play, you gain 4 life or something like that, because I would rather be more aggressive and spike. Well, not only necessarily spike, but it's more it's also the philosophy of Fire, where I would rather screw life total. I'm just trying to get out there and be as much face as possible.
If I played White Weenie, that's exactly what I would do. I wouldn't be worried about gaining life at all.
So, but like I mentioned, I run a pretty heavy Air Force with my build. You got your Squadron Hawks, your Leonin Sky Hunter, and Core Skyfisher.
Yes. So,
Shade of Trocaire and Razor Golem hold down the ground. And your Squadron Hawks, they also work well as a blocker in a pinch.
Definitely.
Don't ever look the ability to chomp, and White Weenie's never going to not provide you plenty of chomps.
Yeah. Get out all your Squadron Hawks, even against an Ulamog. Okay, so you can sack 2 of them and still block him.
Yeah, and Squadron Hawk's ability to put them into play and search for the others,
Yes.
and have them in hand, and you know, not necessarily when I first started playing with Squadron Hawk, I'd get all 4 of them out. You know, that's not necessarily the best play. It's using them when they're effective, and in the instance of Ulamog or a Green Ramp deck, it is, yes, get them out as fast as possible.
Exactly.
You get all 4 of them out and swinging 4 damage is nothing to sneeze at a turn.
Mm-mm.
So, in the sideboard, I added Echoing Calm from Darksteel.
What does that do?
It destroys a target enchantment and all enchantments that share a name with it.
Oh.
So, why I did that is this deck had a lot of problem against those builds that run Rancor and Armadillo Cloak.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes their dudes so much bigger than my guys can deal with.
Right.
And especially Rancor, you know, when the creature dies, it goes back to their hand.
Yeah.
Just kill it.
Yeah.
You get 2 or 3 Rancors or 2 or 3 Armadillo Cloaks out, and you can play Echoing Calm for 1 and a white and destroy all those enchantments. It's gonna seriously hamper their game plan. So, what else is in my sideboard would be Dust to Dust. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. Now that's from the first Masters Edition. It's 2 white and a colorless. Play it and you exile 2 artifacts. Good against the Affinity build. Good against any build that's maybe relying on those chromatic spheres and those chromatic stars to help fix their mana.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, kill some of their lands if all else fails, or get rid of their Mirror Enforcers, get rid of their big threats. And because you're not destroying them, you're exiling them. If they happen to have a, what's he called, the black one? Disciple of the Vault.
Mm.
They're not getting that damage in for sacrificing them because they're being exiled.
Right.
So,
real quick, I know it's probably not a sideboard card, but I was just gonna ask you or inquire about the name escapes me, but he's a little wiener guy that comes out and he has like a javelin counter on him or something.
I took him out.
Oh, you took him out.
A Cathan Javelineers, I think is how it's pronounced.
Okay.
I took him out because
I liked him.
Yeah,
so I'm curious.
He had his use.
Yeah.
But once I started going to a Air Force build,
okay,
and also once I started trying to add in more scry effects, I had to make some cuts.
Okay.
And there's a real synergy between the Javelineer and Core Skyfisher, where you tap him to use up his counter, you play a Skyfisher, return him to your hand, and play him again, and he gets a new counter.
Maybe we should let our listeners know what his counter does.
You can tap him and remove a counter, and it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So, but I had to make cuts somewhere.
Right.
And also in the 1-drop spot, I've got Stand Firm, obviously, and I've also got the Benevolent Bodyguard. And what he does is, you can sack him, and target creature I control gains protection from the color of my choice until end of turn. Which was more valuable to me than a one-shot pinger. So, especially when I've got the Hawks in the air and someone tries to burn one of them out and I can sack my little dude to keep that Hawk alive or keep the bigger flying threat alive, that was more worth it to me.
So, and he didn't make it in the sideboard then?
No.
Oh.
No, he didn't.
Well, I don't know if this will change your opinion, but just for the record, I personally thought he was a good addition to the deck, and he was very, very pesky and annoying to deal with.
That was
time to time.
That was the other thing, and that might be more of a positive than a negative. But you play him and he gets burned.
Yeah,
it's like tap for 1, Stinger, not Stinger, that's the ability, Javelineer, and it's like burn, Lightning Bolt, and there's advantage to that. People using up their Lightning Bolts and their burn and their counters for little dudes.
Yeah,
but at least in the build I'm running, and just like you, I'm open for changes and questions and suggestions to how to make it run more smoothly. This is just where I was at the time of the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
So, realistically, I should probably cut a 2-drop. But I've got Judge Unworthy, Journey to Nowhere, Core Skyfisher, Leonin Skyhunter, which is from Mirrodin Besieged. She's just a 2/2 flyer for a white and a white. And Squadron Hawk, it's kind of like, where do I make those cuts? Do I cut another efficient flyer? Do I cut a 2/3 for a 2 mana with the drawback of returning a permanent? I don't really want to cut my journeys and Judge Unworthy, and I definitely don't want to cut Squadron Hawk. So it's a work in progress most.
I gotcha. Well, hadn't realized that you cut it. I'm glad I brought it up because we've got to cover that. Yeah.
So also in the sideboard, I've got Holy Light. Holy Light is a white and 2 colorless, and the ability is non-white creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. So it's kind of a little sweeper.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's from the original Masters Edition. And then I've also got Prismatic Strands from Judgment in my sideboard, which is prevent all damage sources of the color of your choice would deal this turn. So, if someone swings in for a buttload, I can play Prismatic Strands, and all their dudes are tapped, and I didn't take any of that damage.
Good call.
It's also got Flashback. So again, you're effectively taking it from 4 to 8. And the flashback cost is tap an untapped white creature you control. So if you're doing that on the opponent's turn, and instead of having this dude block and die, you tap him and play Prismatic Strands from your graveyard. It's a hell of a deal.
That is.
So we brought it up a little bit last week, and Suture Priest was coming out in Mirrored and Besieged.
New Phyrexia.
New Phyrexia, excuse me.
It's a spoiled card.
Yeah, he's piqued my interest as a card to add to this deck. The only disadvantage is he's another 2-drop.
I don't know if that's a real disadvantage, to be honest. 2's a nice, sweet little number.
Yeah. You definitely want to be able to curve. So, but with his ability to, whenever I play a creature, I gain a life, and whenever an opponent plays a creature, they lose a life, it's like, that's almost better than the Javelineer right there. Because that -1 is happening every time someone plays a dude.
That's true.
So,
really quick, I just wanted to ask and or bring up, I played what I thought to be a white weenie deck yesterday that used a lot of creatures with Exalted. And I was just curious if you experimented or looked into that at all.
Not so much. Most of the Exalted I've seen have been more in a Bant type list, which is blue, white, green.
Okay.
But I'm definitely open to it. I mean, I think one of them that's coming off the top of my head is Acrazin Squire or something like that.
I just remember seeing some flying creature. I want to say it might have been some sort of Pegasus that had Exalted, and I kept getting, flying damage with Exalted over my walls to me, and I think he beat me. Yeah, I think he did.
Anything you can do to mess with combat math is a real plus for you. It's a bigger plus in paper because people tend to, you don't have the computer
doing it for you,
helping you remember that, this guy's got +1/+1 or whatever. But even with online, those things can come out of nowhere. Exalted is the original battle cry, but the opposite of battle cry in some ways.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's kind of cool.
So, yeah, it's definitely up for grabs. I didn't really think to look into the Exalted plan. I really wanted to focus on evasive beaters, so it was like flyers. Run with some flyers and get over the top of what they're doing and just try and pound them down.
Alright, so moving on, what was your next subject there?
Next subject is I'm going to take a break really quick.
Alright, giggity.
So we'll be right back. Pauper to the people.
Pauper to the people. So, we wanted to cover the top 20 cards in Pauper, and when we first brought it up, we might have been thinking a couple different things as to what this meant. I believe the route we're going to take are the top cards that we have come across and or experienced thus far. Meaning, the list could change, we might update it, we're going to, we'll probably go back to it in future episodes quite a bit. But for now, it's cards that we've encountered and or we believe are important and viable in the format and or staple cards.
I almost think what we could also do is just if it's a card that's been cropping up a lot recently, just feature a couple of them in an episode or something.
Yeah.
But like anything else, you gotta start somewhere.
Definitely.
So
that's I think that's exactly what we should do with this right now.
all right.
So where are we gonna start? I think we should start with Counterspell since it's the top card on both of our lists. Ironically.
Yeah. Blue, Masters Edition 4, counter target spell.
Yep.
Name kind of sums it up.
Sums it up. Obviously, generation ahead of Cancel, which does the same thing for 3 mana. What we're saying for prices? Anywhere between 0.35 all the way up to 1 ticket per piece, per Counterspell.
If you can find them at the low end, get them. If you don't have them and you have any sort of inkling of maybe wanting to play blue, you hate blue, but you don't know where your head's going to be at in 6 months, pick these up.
Exactly what he just said. If they're on the lower spectrum of what we just said, if you have no immediate use for them, just pick them up. They're a staple card in Pauper.
Yep.
Bottom line. What's number 2 on your list?
Muff Diver.
Mine.
Muldrifter.
Muldrifter.
From the Lorwyn block.
Go ahead, since you have experience playing this guy.
Yep. Card draw on a stick is what I had written. So, 2/2 flyer that when he comes into play, draw 2 cards. Another blue staple.
And he has a
Evoke cost.
Evoke.
For 4. A blue and 3 colorless, I believe it is. Let's take a look.
Taking a look. It's in a book. A reading rainbow.
You cannot sing to save your life.
I never said I could. It's all for comedy, sir.
Yet you're singing. Well, that's what Episode 2. Here we go.
Dang, dude. It was last week. We don't have 50 episodes, for God's sakes.
Muldrifter, blue and 4 colorless. Yeah, and then the Evoke is...
His Evoke is less, isn't it?
Yep, it's 1 less. For 2 mana less. Excuse me. So you get to draw 2 cards, effectively. So you get to get the ability without having a creature. When he enters the battlefield, you sacrifice him. So it's some versatility in the card as well.
Okay. Third card on my list was Ninjutsu Blue Guy.
Ninjutsu Blue Guy. Also known as Ninja of the Deep Hours. So,
which is also in the same deck that you're just...
yeah, I've got my Demir Pauper deck up. So, whenever he deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So he's blue and 3 colorless, but he also has Ninjutsu. So,
which is
Ninjutsu. Return an unblocked attacker you control to your hand. Put this card onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. So his casting cost is 3 and a blue. His Ninjutsu cost is 1 and a blue.
He's very annoying.
Yes.
Let's see. What's your third?
Mystical Teachings, which is 3 colorless in the blue. Search your library for an instant or a card with flash and put it in your hand. So it allows you to have a larger toolbox of things at your disposal.
Gotcha.
So
let's see. My fourth, and mind you, these are in no particular order. They're just how I started the list. One on my list is Ulamog Crusher. We've already talked about him. Enough said.
Definitely. Journey to Nowhere.
Journey to Nowhere.
Like I mentioned earlier, if you're not playing Journey to Nowhere, you're not playing white.
Exactly.
So that's straightforward.
Almost the same with Oblivion Ring.
Yep.
It's in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also one of my top cards.
It costs 1 more, but it's effectively Journey to Nowhere 5 through 8.
Yep.
Plus, it can exile permanent, not just creature.
Ooh. Nice. Lightning Bolt.
1 red mana for 3 damage to creature or player.
Enough said.
The very definition of red.
Exactly. I think we both had Lotus Petal.
We did. Free mana production when you need it.
Love it.
Cost 0, put it on the field, you tap and sack, and you add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool.
Did we mention the cost? Oh, I have it written down here. That ranges from 2.5 tickets apiece all the way up to 6.
Yeah, that's another one of those. If you find a steal on it, pick them up. So.
Yes, definitely do so.
Now, something I had on the list are the Ravnica dual lands.
Yeah, I did not have those,
lands.
and I was impressed that you had those. Yeah, those are definitely staple cards.
And
Just
also
pick them all up.
Yeah, also the Mirrodin artifact lands.
Yeah.
So, but more so than that, the Ravnica dual lands. If you're running a dual color deck, and you just need to have those in there, you know.
It comes into play tapped, and then you have to return 1 land to your hand. And it goes for. Well, they're dual colored, so what is their blue-black? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go into it. It's a terrific land card.
What's funny is that's one of those cards where, you know, that's where you start to recognize the advantage of the second main phase.
Oh, yeah.
So, before Travis and I, when we first started playing right around Ravnica, we didn't really understand. It's like, play a land, and the next turn is play one of these Ravnica lands. It's like, oh yeah, you could tap that mana first, and then your second main phase play that land.
Yep.
So,
let's see. I had Cloud Post and Glimmer Post.
Yep.
I think they go hand in hand.
Yep.
You don't really get one or the other. You have to get both.
Basically, what I wrote is life gain for playing what you need to play. You can't run anything without mana.
Yep.
And if you can gain a life off of doing it, heck yeah.
Cloud Post comes in tapped. Glimmer Post does not. However, Cloud Post adds an additional mana to each other locus on the field. And then Glimmer Post gives you 1 life for each locus on the field.
So I've also got...
And I think I covered the prices on those in my deck.
Duress.
It's on my list.
So, 1 black. Well, you can't target Planeswalkers and Pauper. You can still remove a spell.
Yeah, it's effective.
Not to mention, you know...
Especially when your opponent starts with 3 of them.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, you know, it also gives you the advantage, which you can't overlook, if you know what is in their hand.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's game 1 and you play a Duress, you can get an idea of what they're going to be playing against you for the rest of the game.
Yep. I had Crypt Rats. How about yourself?
I did too. I put Suicide Black.
Yeah.
So, Kiln Fiend.
Talked about it last week. It's in my Infect deck. It's a brutal card.
Hard hitter. I've got Pyroblast and Hydroblast in here. They're cheap, but specific counter magic. And if you have the mana necessary to run them, they should be in your sideboard.
And what were the ticket costs on those?
Between 1 to 2 tickets
a piece.
So
okay,
yeah, they're on the middle of the road, but you know you're going to use them in so many decks.
Yeah, definitely staples.
Yep.
Let's see. I had Squadron Hawks.
He's a good guy.
We talked about him earlier. Card advantage, draw him up, 2 mana, 1 flyer. You just see him a lot nowadays.
Yep. I have Unearth, which is bring a creature card back from the graveyard onto the battlefield if it's 3 or less converted mana cost. So.
Okay. I have Chromatic Sphere, which we've covered.
Mm-hmm. Also have Echoing Decay, which is a specific sweeper. So,
what does that do?
Target creature and all creatures of the same type, same name as the one you targeted. -2/-2 until end of turn.
Nice.
So,
I had Goblin Bushwhacker. He's definitely a good card. He's 1 red with an additional red kicker. It gives creatures +1 in haste, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The last one on my list is Brainstorm.
Yeah, I overlooked that one.
So, yeah, well, I mean, looking at constructed standard, everyone's like, brainstorm with Jace, brainstorm with Jace. Brainstorm with Brainstorm.
Exactly.
So,
I think that was it.
Yeah.
That was probably 20.
Ish.
If not, deal with it.
What do you got for comments or emails?
Well, we covered a few people's suggestions. We revisited the Affinity deck and retouched on a few other things. I love comments. I love people's comments and emails. I eat that stuff up. They go straight to my head.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Well,
he won't even talk to me anymore unless it's a comment. I have to tell him how awesome something is in comment form, and then he writes back. It's just like, appreciate it.
Grappling Farang brought up a lot of good stuff, and you mentioned that at the start of the podcast, and I think we touched base on a lot of that stuff, and we're going to be touching base on more of that in future episodes.
Scroll off one. I want to bring this up.
Scroll up?
Up.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. There we go. Good. Brian on our MTG cast, apparently in response to us drinking Gentleman Jack, says that, may I suggest Jameson?
Much smoother.
Much smoother.
And honestly, I read that earlier today, and I almost stopped by the liquor store on the way, but it maybe have to wait till next week.
That's fair enough.
Okay. Brian, thank you for the suggestion. We'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah. So, and then just a lot of compliments that we seem like we're getting the hang of what we're doing, and they're getting better.
And people are giving a lot of comments and recognition to your logo you made us.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. One guy almost as far as said that if he was more impulsive, he'd get a tattoo.
Which made me think we need to start getting some temporary tattoos or something.
Speaking of, what were the emails going on between you and Otwell about some sort of pads?
Okay. If you go to mtgpad.com, it's a site that's run by a guy who makes notepads and scratch pads and things like that you can use for life totals and just kind of keeping track of game states. And
Are we going to get a Pauper to the People pad?
I want to. Be good gifts and good giveaways.
Oh, that would be. So what did Otwell say?
He just said that, if there's podcasters out there who want to see what they look like, to hit him up with their home address, and he'll send out some samples, which I did. It was something I was already considering doing anyway. I said, well, if I can see what they look like, because apparently they're pretty cool.
So when are you getting those?
I just emailed them yesterday.
Damn it, man.
So it'll be a while, but no, that should be interesting.
A while? It better be next week, sir.
Jeez, man.
I'm sorry.
I'm at the mercy of the postal system, just like you are.
No.
We had a couple of people who said that, I didn't even realize that you guys had a contest in episode 1. So,
yeah.
To which I would add that we're going to have more contests coming.
We'll get them more organized and more detailed and such.
We just wanted to kick the show off right. Seems like a long time ago that we started, but it was only
two, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Good thing this is the last episode.
Yeah.
Just kidding, listeners. Just kidding.
Listeners. He does have a big head. Do you hear how he demeans you?
We need to get a phone. Like, all right, caller, go ahead. You're on the line. Wait, podcasts aren't live.
I knew you'd figure that one out eventually.
Let's see. Do we have any other comments that we need to address here?
Yeah, I don't think so. Nick at mtgoacademy.com says he's from Pennsylvania, so feel free to make fun of Georgia all we want. And that he does have my back, so.
What does this guy say? Some things to address. You mentioned some cards at the upper price range in Pauper. The highest of these cards are usually 4 of in the decks, and then blah, blah, blah. Consider anything over 0.25 tickets a piece to be the upper price range. Really? Okay.
Yeah, so there's actually some more information that we can delve into. The top 20 list and just the cards that we mentioned are, at least for me personally, I went off of cards that I played or had played against me or that I had a little bit of experience with. So you'll probably notice that there were no cards that are key to Storm because I haven't dealt with Storm yet. But like anything else, like our deck lists, it's a fluid list, and we just have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Well, appreciate the comments.
Yeah.
Definitely keep those coming. Suggestions.
Emails, suggestions.
If you want. Facebook. Pauper to the People.
Yeah.
Gotta check that out.
Yeah, we are getting close to the amount we need to be able to change the link, the listening to straight up Pauper to the People. So.
A few more people. We need more likes so we can change the address.
Yeah, and that's where you'll find the deck lists we talk about, and ideally, just that'll be the place to gather when there's the podcast going on.
By the time you hear this, I will have my deck list up for the Green Ramp.
Nice.
You need to start posting your deck list.
Yeah.
Well, but you're still a work in progress. You're White Weenie anyway.
Yeah, I
can get
post...
the Affinity up there.
Yeah, I can get the Affinity up there. I can even post the White Weenie where it's at. So. Other than that, I think we're pretty much done. You have any further stuff you wanted to add to this episode?
Just for those who've tuned in since episode 1 and they won our contest, there's just a couple of you that have yet to email us to claim your prize. So we could just hear from you. That'd be terrific.
Before Tuna just goes nuts and opens the packs.
Yeah, and like Tasmanian Devil on a... Rawr.
I think I've never had an unopened pack this long.
Yeah.
In my house.
Starting to get a twitch, are you?
A little bit.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I'm feeling pretty good.
I am feeling terrific.
Awesome. So, thanks for listening. My name's Chris.
And this is Matt.
And we are Pauper to the People.
Pauper to the People.
This part right here. Well, yeah, obviously, but alright, do rats. Okay.
You just said you want to do burn.
Oh, but I do like rats too. You want to Rochambeau for it?
No.
Winner does rats.
No. Okay.
Alright, winner does rats.
Wait. And then he just kept watching me and watching me. He's like, that looks fun, man. I'm like, yeah, it is fun. And so he's like, I want to be on the podcast. And I was like, you can't just be on a podcast and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. That's what I'm for.
That's what we did.
That's what we do. Alright, Rochambeau.
Yeah, winner does mono black full rats, loser does burn, or loser does whatever they want to do. But winner gets the rats.
Why are we fighting for rats? It's not even a fun thing to fight over. Just for the sake of it?
Just for the sake of it.
Alright. Best of 3. It's always best of 3. Read me like a book.
I know, that's why I always beat you online too.
Read me like a book.
Alright, so I'll take mono black control / rats.
Good thing this is my last podcast.
I know.
Sucker.
I wasn't gonna tell you, but you're fired.
Oh.
So